talk about the book Honeymoon by James Patterson. This book is literally, I just picked it up from the dollar section of a bookstore, and so I'm like, let's give it a twirl. I really love James Patterson. I really love his stories, and I love, the suspense and the way it's written is very good. So starting off, I'm going to talk about the brief summary, non-spoiler, and my thoughts on it. So non-spoiler, the summary basically follows a woman who is chased down by an FBI agent because they believe she has something to do with the deaths of some of the top class rich men in New York, and they're trying to go undercover and see if she is responsible at all for their murders. I do think that this book had a great writing style. I really love the simplistic yet very descriptive style that these mystery novels give. Literally they could be making an omelet and they describe it so good that it makes me hungry. That type of style. I love it, and I love that James Patterson does this style a lot. I also love how small the chapters are. This is this chapter 40, the start of it and the end of it. I love it because it's I don't feel guilty for having to go use the bathroom or something and finishing a chapter, so love the style. It is one of those basic James Patterson mysteries. Overall, it was a decent read. It wasn't oh, Shakespeare, spectacular, the best book ever. I don't think I'll ever pick it up again. I don't think I'll ever remember it again. So it was a pretty easy, entertaining read. It was literally short. Overall, it was decent. Nothing all that crazy. So let's dive into spoilers. Starting it off, we're going to talk about the main character, which is Nora St. Clair. She is a, socialite, New York socialite, very, very beautiful, very perfect. Those basic women that men want. Very graceful, charismatic, confident. Her story begins with her going through her everyday life. So she has a husband here, a boyfriend there, and she just sort of goes through it and how she plays these guys. And it started off with her and her fiance. He proposes and they celebrate, and it has a lot of sexual content, this book. Almost every chapter has some mention of sex or a description of them having sex, which is weird because I know it has an aspect, honeymoon, she's seductive, it has an aspect of it, but it was literally just sex, and they go crazy over her for everything, so it's just weird how much sex it had. I feel like it had more sex than murder. Anyway, it went into her story with this guy and how she murdered him, and they described the whole process of her murdering him beautifully. I love that whole description. Going on to how she covered the murder and stuff. The beginning made you wonder, wow, she really got away with this. Then in the second part of the book, they introduce the FBI agent who's sort of running the case. And I found it odd that he and his partner were investigating her. What means did they have to suspect her? It didn't really clarify that. It didn't really go into detail. Or if it did, I just skipped it because it was so boring. I'm not sure. But it didn't really, tell you. It didn't really tell you, why they were after her. But they were suspicious of her. And the part where it was by his perspective, as soon as it introduced him, you really started to not care about Nora anymore, because it really showed the flaws in her plans. How do you expect not to get caught? How? And she was so cocky. She's I'm not gonna get caught, I'm gonna do it again. And I'm I would understand if this was the one time she did it because he cheated or something, but she's a serial killer. She's been doing this for a while, and I'm how do you expect not to get caught? She literally uses her exact same name, or she uses a different first name but the same last name. How does she expect not to get caught? And it was really frustrating, unrealistic, how she had a husband in this city and then flew here from there and had a whole fiance on this one. How? And it was just so frustrating when he was introduced and you just saw she was obviously the murderer. And then she'd do all these stupid things follow him, follow the detective around, and obviously get caught, and fly to another city to see her husband. And if the detective wasn't so stupid and horny, he would have caught her in a second, And that's another thing, talking about the actual detective's character. At first, he's likable, very smart, very charming guy, and I liked him a lot at first because he would like lie off the bat and lie so brilliantly, like I wouldn't even believe it. So it was really great, his character to begin with. But then as soon as he started getting an infatuation with Nora, which I don't really understand. I mean, I get it that sometimes, you know, you get attracted to a person, but he is FBI. He's an agent. Isn't he like trained to like control his dick, like, you know, or something? Like, isn't he trained to just not be so dumb? Like, he's acting like a 17-year-old teenager who can't control his urges, and it's just odd, frustrating as a character. I did not like him at all. At first, I found him like, oh, it's cool, good guy, bad guy, but he just got really dumb. But overall, their relationship was, it was not good. It was like they met a couple times. Out of nowhere, they were having lunch and flirting, and out of nowhere, they had sex and were like, I love you, sweetheart, which made no sense, you know? The book Sweetheart by Chelsea Kane, I guess that's her name. But the book Sweetheart actually had way more chemistry between the killer and the victim. The FBI is the same premise. Like, there was an FBI agent going after a killer, but they actually had chemistry, and it actually made sense why their relationship was so like intertwined with one another. This one didn't. They met a couple times, they slept together, and they were already like in love and like talking about, you know, I can't stop thinking about him and all this weird. It was somewhat satisfying at one scene when Nora found out that he was a detective. That was satisfying because she got so mad and she was like, ugh. And it was funny because she got really upset that he had kids and was lying to her, and she was used to getting her way. So I did like seeing her like a little spoiled brat, like mad that he wasn't all that into her. It was just so funny. And when she found out he was a detective, she was like, what? It was hilarious. But it kind of ruined it because the detective was so stupid. He literally would be sleeping with her. He'd be eating her food after she obviously poisoned it. And he'd be getting sick and throwing up and then eating it again. Like, he was so stupid. I'm like, you should be dead. He got shot like 3 times by her. He should be dead. But he didn't die for some reason. And yeah, it was just frustrating. It was so frustrating. He as a character was terrible. Terrible detective. He should be fired and just should have been dead. As a character, he should have been dead. She was stupid, you know. She was just like this spoiled brat who got her way, and I wanted her to suffer for it. And she ended up being caught and went to jail. But they didn't really go through the whole process of her going to jail. Like, they just completely skipped through it. And then they weren't like, oh, never mind, she's released the next day. So it wasn't that satisfying on that end. At the end, she died. She got poisoned by her late fiance's sister or something. She got poisoned by her, and it wasn't that satisfying either. She died in like a second. Like, would have been better if she actually like got, you know, taunted a bit, but she didn't. So both their characters were stupid, annoying, and I hated them. And when you hate the main characters, you just don't care about the book. It's just the truth. It's just the truth. Yeah, there wasn't much of a cat and mouse chase going on. I did like that they were rivals and trying to figure each other out. But like I said, this book goes really fast, so it sped through it all, which I like, because if it was bigger than this and I had to read it with those, you know, outcomes, I would have been even madder. But what I did like, some of the things I did like the descriptions of things. Like I said, I really liked her New York rich lifestyle. She would go to like massages and describe them. Very awesome, very descriptive, great writing, great what's the word? Great metaphors. What I did like was the introduction of the characters. Did a good job introducing them. They did a good job of making us care enough, you know, to start with. And then the ending, I did like that Nora did die. I didn't want her to die. I didn't think jail was enough for her. I wanted her to, like, you know, actually suffer for the consequences she did. Yeah, what I didn't like was, again, also the ending, because they didn't really go into details as to why Nora hated men so much and poisoned them. And like, they just didn't really explain. I would have loved to see Nora's point of view on what happened to her and why she keeps poisoning her husbands and like go into details with that. But it didn't. It was like, oh, this happened. You know, like it wasn't a compelling argument. It didn't make me care about her at all. She was just annoying. So yeah, I also didn't like the relationship between Nora and the detective. Overall, I give this book a C. The timeline was weird. The relationship between Nora and the detective was terrible. Like, you did not believe it at all. You did not care about it at all. You just wanted them both to be held accountable for what they were doing wrong. But yeah, those are my thoughts. If you want to read this book, that's on you. It's okay. It's entertaining. Like I said, fun little read on a plane or something. But I recommend Guilty Wives by James Patterson. That one is way better. Not predictable at all like this one. It's so descriptive like this one, but it also has a lot of twists and turns. Character you actually love and root for, and the ending is just amazing. So Guilty Wives, I recommend that one instead of this thing. And yeah, let's just say you get what you paid for.